welcome everybody to our TeraThought info session. Thank you all so much for taking an hour out of your Tuesday evening to come join us and learn all about our organization and how we're building a brand new team here on campus. We've got a ton on the docket for tonight. We're gonna start with our overview and story, talk about where we've been and where we're going next. We'll talk about our mission and product, what we're building and why we're building it. Some of the opportunities available, although those are covered in a lot more detail on our website. We'll then take a deeper dive into what an average 2 weeks in the life as a TeraThought member might look like, talk about our culture and the different ways we have fun as a team here, have a Q&A session where you can ask us absolutely anything, and end with a really fun activity where we'll break off in teams and play a fun game. So before we get into all that, I'd like to introduce ourselves. I'm Vikram Agrawal. I'm a CSBA student here at USC. I'm originally from Raleigh, North Carolina, and I'm the company's founder and CEO. So I've been running strong with this for about 4 years. We also have Ethan on the call.
Hello, I'm Ethan. I'm the tech lead. I lead all of TeraThought's developer operations, and I've been here around 2 years, still going strong.
Yeah. So at any time during this session, just feel free to ping us in the chat or raise your hand to ask any questions to either of us. So let's start things off by asking, the biggest, most obvious question, and that is, what is TeraThought? And we like to think of ourselves, especially as we move to USC, as a sort of hybrid between a startup and a student organization. And that's an interesting intersection to be at, because you don't usually think of those two things as being the same entity. But we think it's really an interesting intersection to be at as a group of students here at USC. Because when you think of startups, especially in college, there's this idea of just like 3 or 5 people coding in their basement or something, and usually dropping out of school if things get serious. And while that's super cool if you're up for that kind of life, it certainly isn't for everyone. And as USC students, we certainly have a lot to lose and risk by dropping out of school. So our challenge here is sort of, how do we produce the same results as those 3 to 5 very dedicated people coding in their basement, if not do even better, while sort of reducing that risk for everyone? It's the caliber of a startup with the chillness of a student organization. So if you've ever wanted to work on a real startup, work on a real product, without the risk that's associated with the startup or dropping out of school, this is your chance. We believe that with good organization, our organization can scale to reach those same heights. So a little bit about our story. There's sort of 3 main chapters that we've been through before coming here to USC. We started about 4 years ago in my basement, and actually that was very much the vibe that I just described. It was a couple friends and I in high school just putting some stuff together. And to be quite honest, we had no idea what we wanted to do. We just wanted to do something that would make a difference in our communities and something that people would use around us. So we were mostly just teaching ourselves a lot of skills, learning how to float a company, form an organization, develop software. And we actually ended up launching TeraTime, which is a free stopwatch and timer for Mac, actually the first free one of its kind. And a bunch of people in our school started using it, kind of took off, and now has over 25,000 users. So it's a testament to the power of solving a problem, no matter how small. About 2 years later, I moved to North Carolina, and in my new high school there, created a new organization where we really scaled up. On the right, you'll see a picture of an assembly we held in front of the entire school, and that gave rise to a 50-person organization, which at the time was 1/10 the entire student body. And having this many people resulted in an explosion of ideas. It was also the first time we were able to have dedicated teams, software engineering, design, even finance and legal marketing teams. And this specialization also allowed us to do a lot more. So we were taking on multiple products and projects at once. So you can see a few of them here, from creating green screen software for our local city's museum, to a tough love fitness motivation platform, or AI-powered sound detection, crisis management. We had our hands in a lot of different places. Then of course the pandemic came. And while initially this posed a major problem for organization, which was before so rooted in that one location of our school, we actually took the opportunity to grow past that one physical location. We went nationwide, and we were able to recruit students across the country, college students, and even some graduates, folks in their 30s. And in doing so, we got to experience far more perspectives that led to a lot of cool experiences. For example, we entered one of our products in an entrepreneurship competition, and out of 970 student startups, emerged as one of just 4 winners. We started working on our new product, which we'll touch on in just a bit, and then ended up launching Poundwise to the App Store. So you can actually check it out on the iOS App Store there. It's basically a tough love fitness motivation solution that allows you to bet a little bit of money on the line to make sure you're reaching your fitness goals. But as an organization, definitely the most important advancement we went through during this virtual Zoom period of our life was a dramatic advancement in our technology, our design, and our process in general. Having so many people on our team from all sorts of different perspectives, bringing so many different ideas and contexts to the table allowed us to experiment with a lot of different ideas and also greatly broadened our horizons. But perhaps the most important thing that the pandemic gave us was a sense of purpose, because the response to COVID highlighted just how flawed resource allocation is in this country and across the world. I mean, we were facing shortages of everything, despite having the industrial strength to produce whatever we needed. There was a K-shaped recovery that widened existing inequalities instead of closing them, and all of this while pushing communities further apart. And that made us realize that this was a problem that was actually worthy of making our mission and dedicating all our energy to try and alleviate. So our new mission became combating the scarcity in society by developing software that reduces the waste and improves resource allocation. And specifically, the way we're manifesting that mission is with our product called Shareful. So this is our brand new flagship product that we've actually been working on for quite a while now. And we're really passionate about this one. So, today, think about your own living space. Just look around your room and think about the number of things that you use on a daily or regular basis and the number of things that just sit around for most of the time. And paradoxically, a lot of the things that sit around might be stuffed away in your closets or drawers or places that you don't really see them. And we think that that's a tremendous waste. The fact that most of the things that we own aren't even used on a regular basis. And instead, we keep buying more things and others keep buying more things, where if instead there was a way that we could tap into all this underutilized resource that we collectively own, we could reduce a lot of the waste in society. And that's what Shareful is all about. We're a software platform that allows people to borrow and lend their possessions within their communities. And that word community for us is really important, because the reason why a lot of other products in the quote-unquote sharing economy aren't really sharing, they're more like renting, is because they're interfacing with complete strangers. You look at something like Uber and Airbnb, these are complete random strangers, so you have to introduce money to the equation. And introducing money to the equation kind of slows down that transaction. So by tapping into communities and circles of trust, we're able to dramatically increase the bandwidth of items that can be borrowed and lent. And I'm really happy to announce that while we are building a full software platform of Shareful that will eventually launch to iOS and Android and even the web, our first prototype of Shareful is coming to USC and rolling out within the next few weeks. We've built a version of this on Notion, which for those who don't know is a powerful content management platform that gets us most of the way there with a tiny fraction of the effort. And we'll be rolling it out across all USC dorms and apartments, just campus housing in general, over the next few weeks and across this semester. So I want to pause here for a second. I know that was a lot of context. And if anybody has any questions, I'd love to take them right now. You can just come off of mute and speak out loud.
Hey, so I have a question. Apparently you guys have launched a lot of products before, and that's super cool and interesting. And I kind of want to get some insight into maybe a story of a rather difficult launch and how you overcome that, and maybe some difficulties you foresee with launching Shareful, and maybe some ways that you plan on overcoming that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in terms of difficulty, especially as an organization that has been, maturing technically from novice to more advanced and moving towards that industry standard. Certainly with Poundwise, that was one of the difficult things, because we were a fitness management platform. We were getting tied into a lot of user health data. So, sometimes when you're building a project, it's just about how do we make this thing work? when you launch to the App Store and now it's publicly available, there are a lot of other factors that you have to consider. What are the privacy concerns about this? Do we have a privacy policy? Are we storing users' data securely and encrypting it on the cloud? Are we making sure we're transparent with them about what we're collecting and how we're using it? So a lot of those factors came into play. And I think with Shareful, we'll run into some of the same interesting puzzles where, now we're potentially using the user's location, or we might be, accessing their contacts to see who is in their community. And one thing we learned while building Poundwise was how to be extremely respectful of users' privacy and make sure that data minimization is something that is built into our products by design instead of an afterthought. So yeah, we're looking forward to implementing that with Shareful as well. Does that answer your question?
It does, thank you.
Yeah.
It also gave me some insight into, I guess, some of the experience of Shareful, or not Shareful so much, but TeraThought and the company.
Absolutely. Any other questions about, yeah.
So about Shareful, I know that it's, for now at least, going just to the USC community because, obviously it's still in development and the rest of it. But are there any plans potentially if it works to go bigger? Because I believe this could be a very useful, very good tool, especially for like bigger cities, metropolitan areas, and like that. So just what are your thoughts on the growth and expansion and potential expansion of the product?
Of course. Yeah, in terms of the dedicated software platform that we're building for Shareful, iOS, Android, eventually web, the plan is day one, it's on the App Store, it's available publicly, and we'll be marketing it across the country, or as far as our budget allows. The matter with USC is really just with regards to the Notion prototype. And the reason why that is limited to USC is because of limitations with Notion that there are less safeguards we can implement on Notion to prevent malicious behavior. I'll just leave it at that. So a public release of our Notion prototype leaves vulnerabilities, whereas at USC, we can be a little bit more assured of a safer environment.
Yeah, we also look forward to getting a lot of feedback ahead of time. I know a lot of startups build a product, they're in the woodwork for 4 to 6 months, and then they launch. But we really want our first launch to be well-informed. So we plan on doing things like the Notion prototype to help make better informed decisions about how to design our product so that when we do release to everyone, we know that they're getting the best experience possible, not some alpha or beta version that could possibly not be well designed.
Yep. Yeah, 100%. I mean, in regards to what we're actually all going to be building here, which is the dedicated software platform, because the Notion thing's already built, it's ready to go for USC. But what we're building here is designed to scale from day one. Yeah. Any other questions?
Yeah, I had a quick question. So
Sure.
about how big is the TeraThought team right now?
Yeah. So we were sort of on hiatus for last semester as we were coming to campus. We're looking to build a new organization here at USC. So we have a few members from the Zoom org sticking around. Ethan and I are on the call, and we have 1 or 2 more from the Zoom org, but we're building fresh here. But we are still, we're not a brand new organization as you've seen. So we're building off the experience that we've gained over the past few years.
If you don't mind, I've got another question.
Of course, go ahead.
So if you're positioning as a student org and also a startup, could you tell me how important profit is for everything TeraThought does?
Yeah, it's a good question. Certainly profit is, as the startup part of us, profit is something that in the long run we'll care about. Right now, though, I think we're more in the product development mindset, since having a releasable product that we can put on the App Store and actually generate money is a precursor to any form of profit. And Shareful is a big enough platform that it'll take a while to develop. So right now we're kind of all in the mode of how do we build this product as efficiently and responsibly as possible. And then as we near that product launch, then the mindset sort of starts to shift to that monetization and how we can operate as a sustainable business.
Makes sense. Thank
I
you.
had a question. I had another question geared more towards the development side of Shareful.
Yeah, absolutely.
So now Shareful is powered by Notion, but once you guys are ready to fully launch, what platform do you think you're going to build Shareful off of?
Yep. So initially we're targeting iOS and Android platforms, though eventually we have plans to expand to web as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
I had a quick question.
sure.
Yeah, I saw like in the marketing you talked about like this video editing or like is that for like promotional videos? Can you like clarify like go into more detail about what that part is about?
Yep, we actually have a slide on our marketing team in a bit, so we'll cover that in a lot more detail.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think we actually could probably continue with the presentation. If any of you guys have any other lingering questions, put them in the chat and we'll get to them at the end of this session, since we're also going to answer some questions at the end as well.
Yeah, all right, sounds good. So now, of course, after going through our story and talking about our product, that brings us to present day. And we're building a brand new organization, as I mentioned, here on campus. And really, as that intersection between a startup and a student organization, we're not just trying to build a business, we're trying to build a family from ground up of innovators and people who are passionate about what they do, and people who really care about our mission of helping out the sharing economy and sort of dismantling that paradigm or fighting back against that paradigm of individual ownership. And this really takes interdisciplinary talent. I think there's a misconception that's widely held that when you're thinking about a software startup, it's just a bunch of people coding. And our developers are extremely important, but it takes so much more than that. It takes UI, UX designers, it takes project managers, and it takes marketing strategists. So USC is a really great place where a lot of these different fields can come and mesh together and work together to create something that's more than the sum of its parts. So to that end, let's talk about some of the different roles that we're offering here on our team. We have 4 main teams right now: the development team, our design team, project management, and marketing. So let's dive in. So for the development team, I'm going to hand it off to Ethan here to touch a little bit more upon this, and then we'll keep going.
So yeah, TeraThought's development team is unlike really anything else I've seen, and it's quite a unique experience. Our tech stack is also quite different from other companies, so you will have a really good range of experiences learning new technology and learning industry-leading tech as well. So we have 4 main roles in the dev team. We have iOS and Android engineering roles where you can develop native apps and declarative frameworks like SwiftUI and Jetpack Compose. However, what makes our native developer role special is that you'll be solely developing UI-based code, which means you'll be coding things like buttons, text, styles. You'll be only doing things on the UI side, so you won't actually have to worry about any of the data interactions behind that. It's a really great opportunity to learn native software development without any of the hiccups of learning database transactions or anything like that. On the flip side, we have platform engineering, which is the complete opposite. We use a technology called the Kotlin multi-platform, which allows us to write code once in the Kotlin programming language and deploy it to Android, iOS, and the web all at the same time. So what that means is you can write a network call or storage call once, and it will execute the same way on all the different platforms. So it's a very efficient way to write very high quality apps. And to power our platform engineering stack, we also have another role for a framework engineer. We actually have a custom set of in-house libraries called Enchant libraries, which power the platform engineering stack. So we've developed our own database and architecture solutions to ensure we have the most efficient and high quality software development experience. And if you want to be a part of that, you can become a framework engineer. And the best part is that all of our Enchant libraries are open source. So you can get the credit of working on something cool on your GitHub account publicly. And overall, development at TeraThought is just amazing because we have the simplicity of a startup, but we also have enough industry-leading experience to still have a lot of complementary tools around that. We have fully integrated version control, Lint, and CI, which is pretty much unheard of for a startup at our scale. So you'll definitely be able to solve a lot of unique challenges and have a lot of fun along the way.
Absolutely. And the advancements we've made in our tech stack over the years haven't gone unnoticed by the industry. We've had former members get offers from companies like Google, Apple, Amazon, eBay, Twitter, PayPal, and more. And what we've heard from a lot of recruiters, the feedback that we're getting from the hiring managers is when people talk about the technologies they use here, I mean, the stuff we've been using for years and take for granted, a lot of larger companies are just starting to transition to right now. Paradigms like declarative UI and Kotlin multi-platform. So definitely the engineers who are in the know are in high demand. Let's move on now to our design team. You know, at TeraThought, we realized that a product is only as good as it is usable, and we want our product's experience to be beautiful as well. So the design team is responsible for balancing the form and the function. At the beginning of our design process, we start with user experience design. So our UX designers are conducting research on different personas and user groups. So that could be leading user interviews or conducting focus groups. And they use all the information that they collect from the users to create user flows and wireframes. So these are like flow charts that map the user interactions and low fidelity sketches of what the user interface could look like. And that really defines the product experience for Shareful. Next, the UI designers will take those wireframes and flow charts and mesh it with our atomic design system, which is really scalable and cool, and use it to create these high fidelity, clickable prototypes of the product that can really give an accurate picture of what we're building. And it really serves as the bedrock for the Vue development that we talked about before. And then next up, we have project management. So we'll talk a little bit more about Agile and Scrum in a few slides and how our development teams are structured. But project managers really serve as servant leaders for these development teams. And they lead something called sprint ceremonies, which are the different types of meetings we have to accomplish various goals. We're also tracking a whole bunch of Agile metrics, and really the singular goal of the project manager is, how do I make the team as efficient as possible while maximizing the well-being of all the members of the team? So we're tracking different metrics to see, how fast are we moving, how efficient are we being, and how much is everyone enjoying themselves? Is everyone able to stay within their capacity? And to that end, the project managers are also the stewards of culture within their team. They want to create tight bonds and a close-knit environment where collaboration can thrive. So we like to joke that project managers are 30% manager and 70% cheerleader. They're really these facilitators of Agile development and the Scrum methodology. And finally, we have marketing team. So I believe it was Darren who asked, we'll get to address your question here. Marketing team is structured a little bit differently from the other teams at TeraThought. Instead of being slotted into one role or the other, there are actually half a dozen specializations that you can choose, and you can be in as many or as few of these specializations as you want. So of course, on the one hand, we have our webmaster, so that's responsible for designing and using our website to promote our products and organizations. That's done in Webflow. Graphic media specialists will design print media and different email newsletters and figure out the email strategy. Video production is really this end-to-end process for informational and advertisement videos. So this could be something like a cool new concept video for Shareful, or it could be a recruitment video talking about what the design team does, or it could be a reflection video on how the USC prototype of Shareful has brought our communities closer together. It really could be anything, but the video production specialists get to own this process from directing all the way to the final cut of editing. Social media managers are working with all our different social media accounts and launching the posts and managing the posting strategies. And of course, organizational outreach sort of serves as the recruitment arm of our organization, helping attract talent and promote our opportunities. So now let's take a closer look at what 2 weeks in the life of a member at TeraThought look like. A couple things we want to highlight here. One is that we're extremely big on growth and learning. And the most obvious way that you'll see this is in all the training resources that we provide to our members and the learning that we try to facilitate. But as a young organization, the growth and learning actually works two ways. One of the biggest things we learned during our Zoom chapter is how much we can grow from our members and just as much as they can grow from us. So one of the things that we highlight at TeraThought, and one of the benefits of being part of a small organization, is that every member can really make a tremendous impact on the direction of our team. And a lot of the decisions that we make are originally brought up by ideas from, our developers and designers saying, hey, what if we did this differently? What if we did that? So we really prize that feedback and are always looking to grow in our own way. We also value flexibility a lot. So one of our core tenets is we try to minimize the number of required meetings and say, yeah, you can work on your own time. Let's keep it asynchronous. Let's keep it flexible. Obviously, if you want the time to collaborate, you can pull together any number of teammates, but we want to enforce that and, have that overhead as little as possible for all of you. The few meetings that we do have are really the daily stand-ups, which we'll talk about a little bit more as we get into our Agile and Scrum methodology, as well as our bi-weekly all-hands meetings. So on our application, there's a question that asks, what time on Sunday you're available, because there really is just that 2-hour slot every 2 weeks that we need everyone to be there. And of course, throughout the entire process, we want to have fun as well. So we'll be trying to organize lots of socials with the team and, whether it's movie nights or team lunches, just really bring the team together. But let's take a deeper look now into our product development philosophy. And one thing that we've learned over the past few years is it's better to be more structured and systematic about this than less, because that's how we really keep ourselves steady and hold ourselves accountable. So the philosophy that we're subscribing to is the industry standard set of values known as Agile. This is pretty much like the de facto way to build software across the industry. And it's kind of like a declaration of independence. It's a set of values and tenets that no one can really argue with, but also what do you do with that? How do you implement it? And that's where Scrum comes in. It's an implementation guide for the principles of Agile. And it prescribes a Scrum team, which is the project manager that we talked about before, along with around 5 to 7 developers. And together that Scrum team is cross-functional. Another thing that Scrum prescribes is the sprint. And the sprint is a 2-week cycle of planning, development, retrospection, and ultimately reflection. So the sprint, this 2-week cycle, is really the heartbeat of our company and our product development. It's the TikTok that keeps us going. So you'll hear us talking about sprints a lot more than weeks itself. In the first 2 days of the sprint, usually a Monday or Tuesday, we'll have something known as sprint planning, which is where each Scrum team meets amongst themselves and they bring in work items. So these could be like different features that we're trying to implement or what have you from a prioritized backlog. And then they'll work on defining these more and sizing them as well. And the end goal here is to form a sprint commitment, which is something that the teams say, yeah, we're going to get this done over the next 2 weeks. And over the next 2 weeks, they work on it and they have daily check-ins with their teams, really short, just over Zoom, 15 minutes, to keep themselves updated with how things are going and make sure that we can address any blockers or issues immediately instead of letting them fester and allowing them to become a problem. And then finally, on the last day, that Sunday meeting where we all come together, each team has a presentation of what they've accomplished during the sprint. And then teams break off separately and have a reflection. What went well? What do we want to improve for next time? What feedback do we have for ourselves as well as our other teammates? And that allows us to grow and improve on a 2-week cycle, which is a really powerful thing. And of course, as I mentioned before, we want to have fun throughout the process as well. So project managers are really encouraged to create these kickbacks with their teams. And certainly as a company, we'll organize a few as well, whether it's something like a movie night or a team lunch, maybe even go to the beach. The best part is, as a core member of this very young organization here at USC, you can help us decide a lot of these things because ultimately we're not just building a business, we're building that tight-knit community, and that's where the student org part of us comes in. So that's pretty much it for the information part. I do want to take a longer pause here to do a Q&A, and then we'll break off into a few teams to do our fun game activity.
I got a question. How much time each week can we expect to be putting into the student organization?
Yeah, it's a great question. It varies a little bit depending on your role, but I would say in general between 5 to 10 hours a week. Developers probably closer to 10 hours, marketing strategists maybe closer to that 5. But I do want to emphasize that as a student org, we're also very sensitive and flexible to the stressors of students. So we'll literally cancel a sprint during finals week because we realize that everyone's going to be shot, or if you have a ton of midterms or something, you can let your team know, and we'll just like lower your capacity for those 2 weeks to adjust. So we do emphasize that flexibility.
Yeah, I had a question. Do you think you can go more in depth into the product management position?
Yeah, so project management, in the agile world, this is known as a scrum master role. And do you have like any particular clarification around this that you'd want?
Like, what would be like the everyday roles of somebody in the product management position?
Yeah, so a project manager, their everyday life would look like, for most of the days during a sprint, it's organizing that daily stand-up and just checking in with their team. But it also goes a little bit beyond that to be proactive and think, all right, by this point in the sprint, how much of our commitment should we have done? Oh, we're falling a bit behind. What are some steps we can take to either reset expectations or get the team back on track? And that might mean setting up other meetings or one-on-ones with team members to do like conflict resolution. It also means that if a team member has a blocker or a dependency, you're sort of the liaison for that team, and you insulate your team from having to figure that stuff out. So you're talking with other teams and saying, hey, we need to get this done to, keep this work moving forward. At the end of a sprint, the project managers are also the default representatives of their team for presenting the work that's done, and they also lead the sprint planning session. So it's sort of a lot of that like servant leadership.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? We have one in the chat. How many people are there per role? For example, would there be less project managers than devs? Good questions, yeah. So we don't have a fixed number of people that we're looking to bring on. We're thinking about this in Scrum teams. So the theoretical maximum is like 5 Scrum teams, but I don't think we'll bring on that many this semester. And we think about the number of people we bring on as a ratio. So in a Scrum team, the ratio between a project manager and developers is about 1:6. So the PM, dev, designer ratio is about 1:6:2. So that also is correspondingly how many roles we'll have for each role, but it'll be some multiple of that ratio, if that makes sense. So that is to say that, yeah, if you're interested in multiple roles, I definitely recommend putting your hat in the bucket for a few of them.
Are there any sort of tenureship commitments you're looking for? Like anybody you bring on, you like them to stay 6 months, a year?
I mean, nothing that we can enforce legally or anything like that. Nothing like a tenure, but we are looking at, especially at this stage where we're young and starting out, we are looking and hoping that people who join us will stay for the long haul. So this isn't, by any means a semester-long thing. It's, as much as you can, stick with it, because ultimately I think for everyone involved, it's really gratifying to see our product launch at the end of the road and see it take off from there. And for us as well, if we're able to have a core team that grows with our organization, we have a much better chance of successes as well.
Regarding the design team, is the UI and the UX like 2 separate roles, or could one person take on like both UI and UX, or like how does that work exactly?
That's a great question. So in the way we do recruiting, in the beginning, we'll assign someone based on their interest and fit to either UI or UX. However, because there is some overlap and intertwining between them, we definitely encourage our designers to become cross-functional over time. And something we didn't mention here, but is in the cards later, is something called the senior designer role, which is someone who would be taking on both UI and UX. But we kind of want our folks to develop a specialization in one of those areas first, and then expand from there. Yeah, great questions.
Yeah, we do have a lot of opportunities for growth and especially flexibility. It's not like if you're a dev, you're specifically that doing one technology, or if you're marketing doing specifically one thing. We highly encourage people to try out different things. And if you have an interest in another area, you can also pursue that kind of at the same time. So like if you're more of a technically interested product manager, we can potentially explore having you do more technical things as well. And there's so many different possibilities for overlap, and we would really like to help when we can take it. So yeah.
All right. Well, then if anything comes up, if you have any other questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. For now, though, we will move on to our super fun activity. And it's something we call interdimensional innovation. And we'll explain what that is in a second. So we like to have fun here. And for this info session, we're going to keep things vaguely topical. As you know, developing software solutions, we like to think about new tech ideas and products all the time. And this is a fun spin on that. So everyone can just go to that short link right there, and we'll explain the game. You'll be broken off into teams, and each team will be assigned, or we'll get to choose actually one of the different dimensions that we've created. So there's like a party verse and a zombie verse, and I'm pretty sure there's one about like squirrels in there. So the idea there is you'll read each scenario and you'll come up with some sort of tech product that, bonus points if it fits a tech trend as well, that addresses the problem that's laid out in this particular quote unquote dimension. So it seems like there are 12 of us on the call, so we'll split into 3 teams of 4. We'll open some breakout rooms right now, give everyone about 10 minutes or so, and you can even like throw some basic slides together or something, because when we come back in, we'll choose a spokesperson or 2 and just like pitch your ideas. I do want to say this isn't like a competition or something. It's really just meant to be for fun, so don't take it too seriously, and the sillier the better. We're just having fun right now. All right, sweet. Then let's start with team 1 going first. I think we all picked our spokesperson, so just take it away. Just 1 or 2 minutes, talk about which dimension you chose and your idea.
Okay, so Mackinnon and Ralph were part of team 1, and we chose the Partyverse alternate dimension, and our idea was an app that's dual featured. One of them will be where it displays in sort of a Google Maps type fashion where specific parties are happening, like what their rating is. So you can see, which one's not as great, which one's going to be better. They'll also be like themed, by like color or something else. Depending on like what the weekend is, what the like what holiday is going on, and so on. And so that's one of the features. And then another feature, the secondary one, will be where you can see a list of what parties are happening now that are like closed for RSVP. So some would have already been filled up, whereas there will be others that are readily available. And our thinking was we could market multiple at the same time so that people have plenty of choice, because obviously if everyone's going to 1 or 2 places, there's going to be too many people. It's not going to be worth it. So give everyone choice, make the parties rated, make them really easy to see. And one key feature would be having like a Snapchat-like feature where people can record their experience at the party and show people, because you can rate it, but if you click on it and see it, and you're just like, okay, this is poppin', then like you'll go there. Or if you record this other place and you'll be like, well, it's poppin', but in this other way, maybe I want to go here instead. Just because seeing is believing, especially when you're in the zone. And yeah, that is our little idea.
That's actually really cool. I mean, we started this thing with just like, oh yeah, be silly, but this is like low-key really kind of viable. I wonder if something like that exists already. But
yeah, I wouldn't blame you if you thought we were trying to like get ideas from you. Like people have come up with some really clever stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, a friend of mine who goes to Yale actually has already created an app for Yale specifically that kind of sort of does this, not with the features, but just the very basic principle of finding parties. He's already done that. So
very cool. Awesome. Thank you for that, Nikita, and Group 1 in general. Team 2 now. Do you have one person who'd like to talk about your idea a bit?
Yeah, I can go for it. So we actually chose to make an app for the Prankverse. And so we fittingly decided to call our app the Prankverse. And basically on Prankverse, what happens is you can create a pool or a group of people that can either choose to buy into the pool or play for free. And then in this pool, all the people are basically, in essence, going for a prank war for a certain amount of time. And then at the end of this prank war, people, or throughout the duration of the prank war, people will be able to upload videos of them pranking others in the group, and then they'll be able to vote, rate, and then like which pranks they think are the best. And then basically by the end of the prank war, there should be a leaderboard, and then the top pranker will be able to run away with all the prize money or all the points. And then also privacy concerns, you can set your videos of pranks to be public, private, and there it will be a public eye, like maybe a feed where you can see the top pranks of the day or a certain time period. And that will be an incentive for people to get out there, start pranking, try and reach some prank fame, and then basically be like a whole prank community.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. Yeah. Great stuff, Team 2. And that's pretty much all we have here. So thank you all so much again for taking the time to join our info session. I hope that game was fun. I hope this info session was informative and helpful. As a reminder, our application is open until Friday, February 4th. I'm actually going to drop the link in the chat right here for your convenience, so you can just check that out. It's all over our website as well. And lastly, because we always are looking to improve, we're going to drop that feedback form again. And if you could take it really just takes 2 to 3 minutes after the meeting to let us know how we did or how we could do better. We're always grateful for the input. So again, thank you everyone. Hope to see your application soon and can't wait to work with some of y'all. Peace.